I realize it's hard to make me cry in a movie theater. Not only am I socially aware of who's in the theater, but movies just don't do emotion the way they used to. I kid you not, the last movie I ever cried at was Toy Story 4, the first movie I ever reviewed on this channel. 5 years later, damn it, Pixar! Inside Out 2 is the latest from Pixar and is a sequel to Inside Out, which released in 2015, 9 years ago. The first film follows a young girl named Riley and her 5 emotions that go on in her head. We have joy, voiced by Amy Poehler, sadness, voiced by Phyllis Smith, anger, voiced by Lewis Black, disgust, voiced by Mindy Kaling, which is ironically the emotion I get from watching Velma, and fear, voiced by Bill Hader. For me, the first Inside Out is a top 5 Pixar film. The emotions were beautiful, the message was powerful, and I'm gonna say it, it's f***ing funny. Anger and fear alone are funny enough to have their own spin-off. I hear they're making a Disney Plus show or something like that. Disney, get on it.
Wait, let's just be copper, what's that?
And while I can safely say Inside Out 2 doesn't surpass the first film, it's still pretty damn good. For this review, I'll be taking a look at the summary of the plot, and then take a look at the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Wait, let's just be copper, what's that?
The plot for this sequel follows a now 13-year-old Riley as she experiences, oh, what else do teenagers experience? Puberty. With Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling being replaced by Tony Hale and Liza Lapira, respectively. That means new emotions. These are anxiety, voiced by Maya Hawke, envy, voiced by Ayo Edebiri, ennui, voiced by, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, and embarrassment, voiced by Paul Walter Hauser. He doesn't say much. With puberty comes these emotions, and anxiety specifically feels that Riley needs more sophistication for her life than what the emotions had for 13 years. This sends our emotions on a quest of self-discovery, and they come across some interesting stuff along the way.
Wait, let's just be copper, what's that?
Want a break from the ass?
First up on the good stuff, this film really keeps with the humor. It would have been easy to dumb it down because it's technically a kids movie, but you can tell the writers were still wanting to cater to those who grew up with the movie. Like me, I was 13 when the first film came out, and now I'm 21. A big example of this film's humor is the scene where they're in the vault and they come across this video game character, and he has such a lame final move that it reminds me that I am in fact a Game & Watch main. I also appreciate that this character's VA has Final Fantasy voice credits, what this is clearly supposed to be satirizing. Anger is personally my favorite character purely based on how he's designed and how he talks. He can blow his top at any moment and very violently talks about punting anxiety out of the headquarters. He's a riot. Speaking of anxiety, I like that in the last maybe 3 or 4 years we've been seeing more and more anxiety be portrayed better in film, specifically animation. While this example isn't the best, in 2021's Paw Patrol movie, there's a scene where Chase is on the case. Sorry, my little cousin used to watch it all the time and I know practically all about the show, but Chase pretty much feels the pressure of his job all at once and just kind of backs away and cowers. Not nearly as great as later examples, but I appreciate that for a film for babies, it's able to tackle a subject like this pretty well. The other example is an obvious one, but it's Puss's panic attack in The Last Wish. This is still my favorite panic attack scene in any animated movie for just how real it is. It's genuinely amazing how well done this scene was. Without giving too much away for this movie, there's a scene in the movie that will definitely be hard to watch for some viewers, myself included. I'm not going to get too sappy with this, but I do have high anxiety, so I love seeing anxiety for what it is. She even explains that fear is meant to protect Riley from what she can see, and anxiety is meant to protect Riley from what she can't see. That is probably the best way to describe it. It's not just a form of fear, it's a fear of something you don't know or something you don't hear or see. The other emotions, -1, but we'll get to that purple tampon when we get to her, are all pretty enjoyable. Envy is adorable. I mean, all you gotta do is put Ayo Edebiri in anything and I'll like it. Embarrassment got a lot of mixed reception, but A, he's voiced by Paul Walter Hauser and I absolutely love him. And B, he really is supposed to be that kind of middle guy. He knows what's good for Riley, but being the literal embodiment of embarrassment, he doesn't want to speak up about it. There's 2 scenes with this old emotion named Nostalgia, and God, she's so adorable, and she's voiced by June Squibb. I love June Squibb. I'll just say, as I mentioned, having high anxiety myself, I relate to the anxiety stuff in this movie. It's heartbreaking to see just how good they got it because, I admit, towards the climax of this movie, I was kind of getting fidgety and on the edge of my seat. I won't give anything away, but man, it's just so intense to see someone who isn't a major action hero. You gotta think, this isn't someone like fake or made up. This is a very real teenager, even though she is animated. But it seems like she goes through these emotions in a real way that can be relatable. I also argue that the film not having a villain again like the first film really worked, because what even is the point of a villain? You can argue anxiety is the villain here, but she really just has the same arc that Joy had in the first movie. She just wants to help Riley, but doesn't realize she's hurting her. Honestly, this was the perfect film to do, especially when they did it. But yeah, let's talk about the bad stuff now, because this movie definitely has that.
Wait, let's just be copper, what's that?
The emotional moments in this movie, while they still work, don't really last as long, and such, we don't have time to process the emotions. There's a scene where Riley arrives at this hockey camp, and she just got told some serious life-changing news for a teenager. So after she arrives, sadness allows her to cry, but it just kinda rushes itself. Like, it immediately goes into the next scene. There's a couple scenes like that, honestly. I also argue that the worst new emotion is ennui, because I can't remember a thing about her other than she's supposed to be boredom. Then why didn't they just call her bored? She has a scene where she freaks out about her little mobile console being stolen. Like, why did you put it over the, stop being lasered for 5 seconds? She was just not interesting at all, and with how good the other emotions were, I wish they could have worked on that. Anxiety's design is literally the only thing I didn't like about her. I think they could have gone with some more frantic clothing. I don't know, because a turtleneck ain't gonna make me think of anxiety. I guess the hair is cool, but just overall, her design just wasn't that great, especially considering the prominence of anxiety in a teenager's life. And to the thing I probably get annoyed by the most, the overall journey that the emotions go on feels awfully like the first film. Only it's the whole gang and not just joy and sadness. They even go to Imagination Land again, and I'm just like, really? They could have explored more interesting places. But they go into a jar.
Fucking what?
Little side problem, I got Vietnam flashbacks when they mentioned that Riley likes this boy band that sounds eerily like a K-pop boy band name. I am not doing this again, Pixar.
Right. Let's just be calm for one second.
While I understand that some people are going to see this as a Pixar classic like the first one, I still really enjoyed this film. I feel like it took all the right steps, was an incredibly enjoyable, and I dare say, relatable time. Inside Out 2 is definitely still a fun and enjoyable film to really bring out the emotions.
And if Joy can't see that, well, then she's delusional.
Delusional?